So we're gonna, the meeting is being recorded, guys. All right, so we're gonna begin. So let's just do a quick 1 minute review of what we discussed so far. Remember, what we're doing here is that we're giving over a little bit of the deeper spirituality, deeper spiritual reasoning, deeper Kabbalistic concepts behind the nitty gritty Jewish stuff that we do. Now, normally, a lot of times we'll hear some inspirational ideas in Judaism, and then we'll go over to some class on Jewish law, and it seems to be very particular, very nitty gritty, and it seems to be very like a checklist, and it's just like, what the heck does this have to do with the spiritual ideals and ideas of Judaism, of Chassidut, of Kabbalah, of all this kind of stuff? So what we're doing here, hopefully, is a little bit of a, I don't know if you call it an integration, but we're hopefully we're doing a little bit of basically getting into the spiritual side, spiritual meaningfulness behind the things we do in Judaism, and hopefully that'll help us to have more kavanah, more intent, more meaningfulness, more passion behind the different things we do in Judaism. And again, disclaimer, like we said last time, what we're saying here isn't the reason why we do anything in particularly in Judaism. The reason, right? It's a reason, it's a flavor. It's more of a flavor, a taste for one, or an insight into one of the things that we do in Judaism, the different things we do in Judaism. Of course, ultimately, we're doing anything that we do in Judaism is coming from beyond this world, is coming from beyond anything that we're going to be able to perceive in our small, limited minds. And it's coming from an infinite source, coming from God, and therefore, the truth of the matter is that that's the reason we're doing it. A reason is what we're talking about here. There's a difference between the reason and a reason. We're involved here in a reason, a window into it, a flavor for what we're doing. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, so last week we spoke about the concept of Avodat Hashem, what it means. We will revisit that because that is a theme of what we're talking about in general here. Maybe a little bit today, but definitely, God willing, next week, and the week after that as well. So as we get into other conversations about clothing, about the bathroom blessing, Asher Yatzar, which is the weeks down the road. For now, we're going to speak about the concept of Netilat Yadayim. Netilat Yadayim, the washing of the hands, in particular, the morning hand washing. Are you ready? Yes, there you go. So here we go. Before we go into the sources that I gave, and if you should have them on your phone, if you're really diligent, you printed them out and you're ready to roll. But before we get into the sources, let's talk a little bit outside. I want to talk a little bit, we can go into it a little bit, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll go into the sources and see some of these concepts, okay? So the idea is like this. If we're going to start talking about Netilat Yadayim, if we're going to start talking about the washing of the hands, really, firstly, we need to understand in Judaism a misunderstood concept called Tumah and Tahara. Tumah and Tahara, two misunderstood concepts, right? Usually that's translated, Tahara is usually translated as purity. Tumah is usually translated as impurity. However, this sounds kind of bad, and certainly with our backgrounds and in the Western world, in essentially a Christian world where most of us grew up, that sounds kind of bad. That sounds kind of dirty, right? But let us understand, really, we need to redefine, we need to reclaim, like they like to say nowadays, the word tumah. We need to redefine what we mean by tumah. Forget about the word impurity. If you want to do a little visualization and exercise in order to really get it out of your system, you could look at the word impurity and visualize the word impurity and imagine it's on a paper and you crumple it up and you throw it away, right? Oh, I'm free of that word. Now, what does tumah mean? Tumah means, say the different Jewish sources, says the Maharal of Prague and others, that tumah is an energy that takes hold when there is a loss of potential. Let me say that one more time. An energy that takes hold when there is a loss of potential, okay? What is the biggest example of tum'ah energy that we have in Judaism? Does anybody know?
Death.
Death. That's right. That's right. A dead body. A dead body is the biggest example of tum'ah energy that we have in Judaism. Why? Very simple. It's the biggest loss of potential there could possibly be. before that person had a soul of God empowering that body. Literally, a spark of the infinite was empowering that body, and now that spark of the infinite has left. That is literally the grandest and biggest loss of potential there could possibly be. So, a dead body, therefore, is the strongest example, the biggest example of tuma energy that there could be. Okay, and that's why there's a whole process of what's called a tahara process. Tahara, of course, is going to be the opposite. If tuma is the energy that takes hold when there's a loss of potential, tahara means that a person is in a state of ready for holiness. A certain is a state that's susceptible for elevating. Okay, is basically the opposite of energy of loss potential. It's the energy for potential. I'm ready to roll. I'm in a good state that's ready to roll, ready to uplift. And of course, ultimately, uplifting is the concept, elevating is the concept of kedusha, of holiness, right? So that is the concept. So that's why also, so when a dead body, before it's buried, it goes through a certain process of tahara, of getting rid of that energy of loss of potential, right? This also explains why a woman that has had her period is also in a state of what's called tum'ah. Simply again, tum'ah means an energy that takes hold when there is a loss of potential. There was a loss of potential for a new life, for a new soul to come into this world. There is that on a certain level. So therefore, there's a whole spiritual reality of an energy that tuma comes in, and there's an energy that takes hold when there's a lost potential. And then, of course, when the time is right and everything that's done needs to be done, then there is a process by which we get rid of that energy of loss of potential and come again to a state of tahara, which is okay. Now I've gotten rid of a energy of lost potential. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to uplift. So another example of this, right? We just said before, the biggest example of energy of loss of potential was a dead body. Okay, so the truth is, we all know that there's a source, or most of us probably know that there's a source in the Talmud, a famous source in the Talmud, which says that sleep is 1/60th of death. That there is a flavor of death in sleep. Okay, so what does that mean to say? That means to say that according to the Jewish sources, a person when they're asleep, the soul also leaves the body to a certain extent, not 100%, but basically the soul leaves the body except for the amount that's needed to keep the body alive. The soul leaves the body, and therefore, when a person wakes up and the soul comes back to the body, then that person still has that energy of tuma is still with that person. Now let's be very clear. It's not the same as a full tuma experience, okay? Because it was just sleep. It wasn't death and it wasn't other things that we spoke about. It's just simply, right? So the tuma energy only comes in a certain amount. According to the Kabbalistic sources, according to halacha, Jewish law, the soul only goes in up to here. Now, by the way, let's just be clear. The Maharal of Prague, as we're about to read, the Maharal of Prague explains that tuma energy comes into the tuma energy comes into the body by way of the hands. Always. The tuma, as far as I know, the tuma energy comes into the body by way of the hands. Why? Because remember, tuma energy is an energy that takes hold when there is a loss of potential. In this world of action, what's called in Kabbalah the Olam Asiyah, in this physical world, when we talk about potential, first and foremost, we mean the potential to do. And what's the example, the staple of doing on our bodies? The staple of doing is the hands. You build, you do, you act, you make something happen. That's the hands, right? So when there is an energy that takes hold, when there is a loss of potential, the first and foremost, that place in the body where that's felt is the hands, because the hands are the example of what it means to do. So if there's a loss of potential in this world, it means loss of potential to do. So first and foremost, it affects the hands. So therefore, tuma energy comes in by way of the hands. So according to the spiritual sources we understand in Judaism, that when a person sleeps, when a person goes to sleep for a serious amount of time, and especially if a person sleeps overnight as well, this tuma energy goes in by way of the hands, but only goes as far as the hands. That's it. Okay? And so therefore, And let's just be clear. So when a person wakes up, they wake up, and even though they woke up, so still there is that energy of loss of potential that is still with them. Okay. And by the way, we have this in our lives very easily, right? Have you ever spoken to someone, or maybe you feel this way yourself, right? You can fill in the sentence here, right? I woke up at 7 a.m, but I didn't really feel awake. I'm only really awake once I
Have coffee.
have my cup of coffee. There you go. Do you hear that idea? That means to say, even though you're awake, the energy of sleep, the energy of the night was still with you, right? And then something else came along and got you past that, so to speak, right? So my friends, what we're trying to share here is essentially that washing of the hands in the morning is essentially your spiritual coffee. Your spiritual coffee gets rid of that energy of a loss of potential. Now, we're going to go into a little more the process of the concept of the water, the concept of the vessel. We're going to do that right now. So let's go through. We're going to start to go through the sources now that I sent out. And we're going to say some of the stuff that we already said, and then we're going to see a little bit more as well. Are we ready? Can I get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So here we go. If you have this source sheet, awesome. If not, it is in the WhatsApp group. All right. Okay, we start with the source on the top right of the page. On the top of the page, it should say hand washing, just to clarify that. Okay, the top right of the page, we see a source from the Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, Maharal of Prague, Netiv Avodah, Parsha, Perek, chapter 16. Here it goes. He says like this. Ein hatuma sholetet rak b'chutz lo benistar ubenistar kol tahara but b'chutz shama tuma kasher yidul lenevonim. Right. So he says, what's the concept of tumah? The concept of tumah is externality. It is where there can why because in the internal everything is holy, everything is pure for sure. What's going, but on the external, that is what is affected. That is where this loss potential can take place. Okay, and so he says like this. Okay, so we have a question. Kasha, lama neket yadayim dafka. So why specifically? We focus on the hands over here. Why is that the big deal? So he says, that is more external than the rest of the body, right? You can see it also, a person lifts out their hands. That also is sharing with you the idea that the hands are more involved in this physical world. The hand is more susceptible to externality, to loss of potential here in this world. That's what we just said. ולכך, הצריך הכתוב לידיים ורגליים טהרה במקדש. הידיים מכוח ההתפשטות שלהם לחוץ. So we see that in the Beit HaMikdash, you actually need hands and feet to have this concept of tahara, to have this concept of ready for elevation, right? Meaning to not be in the state of tumah, in the state of loss potential. You need both for the hands and the feet, right? So hands, because again, this concept of they're involved in the external world and therefore susceptible to loss of potential. So this is why in certain sources it talks about that, again, that hands are busy with this world. So he says that about the hands, but also the legs also tzrichim kadosh, but this is talking about the Beit HaMikdash. We're going to talk about, the truth is, so let's not even go into this now. I don't want to cause confusion, but let's just be clear. The Beit HaMikdash person needed to do certain things in order that their feet should be also in a state without tumah. So you might ask the question, well, what about now? The answer is now the hands have the opportunity to be elevated. The feet, in a world without the Beit HaMikdash, the truth is, the feet don't even have that opportunity. We've given up on them. The feet don't have that opportunity. So fine, we're not going to go into it now. But anyway, there we go. We're beginning to understand the concept of hands, beginning to understand the concept of tumah. Let's look at the next source over. On the left side, top left, Rabbi Nassan of Breslov, Likutei Halachos. Here he's going to start to begin a conversation of water. What is water? Okay? Or at least one concept of it. Ready? Here goes. Here we're going to see Rabbi Nassan of Breslov, Likutei Halachos, Netilat Yadayim, Shashachris, 3:3, I think it says. It says like this. Valkin, kishemit orer mishnato, when a person wakes up from sleeping, az tzrich litol yadav b'mayim, then a person needs to wash their hands with water. Why? Ki hamayim heim bechinat da'at. because water is the concept of da'at. What does da'at mean? Perhaps we'll go into this further another time, but da'at is the concept of consciousness. Da'at, okay, a lot of times it translates as knowledge. Again, if you look in the Jewish sources, knowledge just doesn't sum it up. It doesn't mean like another piece of information, right? It means something that you're attached to, right? So something I'm attached to my awareness, I'm attached to myself, I'm a conscious. So it's the concept of consciousness, is the concept of awareness. Bechinat, ki timalei haaretz dea et Hashem kimayim layam mechasim, right? There's a pasuk, there's a verse in Isaiah which says that in the messianic times, that the world will be full of consciousness of God. God consciousness, God awareness. Like it's going to be the words. Sorry, let me say that again. That the world is going to be full of consciousness of God, like the sea is full of water. So you see that there's a connection here being made in the pasuk, made in the verse, between the concept of consciousness and the constant and water. That water is a mashal for God, for consciousness. Okay, ki anu shrichim leitmashech lamshich mida. Shoot, what does it say? נמשיך, מי הדת, כדי להמשיך בחינת כסדר, כדי לבטל הזוהמה הנאחז בידיים, שאחיזתם בחינת שלא כסדר, כי כל אחיזת הקליפה הוא בחינת שלא כסדר. Okay, let's clarify some of this for a second. Right, what is he saying? He's saying that the concept of dat, that what water is doing, right, that the concept of water is this concept of or I should say better, the concept of the consciousness is that that things are in order, that you can see things clearly, right? And this is what higher consciousness is involved with. This is the concept again of the mashal for that is water. Okay. Okay, let's just go on. מקבל חיות בשלימות מבחינת כסדר, שזהו בחינת חשכת לילה ושינה, שאז נשאר הגוף שבחינת לילה בלי חיות מהשכל שבחינת יום. So he's trying to set up some parallels for you, which is what often Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nassan do, and really all of Hasidus. And trying to say that there's a concept of day, there's a concept of light, and there's a concept of darkness, right? And the idea is always we want to align, we want to bring light to darkness, we want to bring consciousness to a space where things are not conscious, right? At night, things are not conscious. By the way, also when the soul leaves the body, so it means, or the soul leaves the body to a certain extent, then the body isn't conscious, right? So the body is lacking light. And so what we're trying to do here is, okay, take some of the water, which is the concept of light, which is the concept of consciousness, and put that onto the body, and in particular the hands, like the Maharal just explained, because that's the place that is most susceptible to this loss of consciousness, to this loss of potential. So take from the water and put it onto the hands, right? To bring consciousness to bring Seder to a place that's low Seder. To a place that bring understanding to that space that doesn't understand, bring clarity to that place that has lost clarity, right? And so it's more or less, this is what the Rebbe Nassan is trying to say over here. Now the truth is, everything we're sharing actually matches up with a big concept in Kabbalah. That there's a big concept in Kabbalah which talks about, or a big paradigm in Kabbalah which talks about light and vessel. That really everything in this world is a union of light and vessel. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you were to see a ray of light coming in the window. When you're seeing that ray of light, you're not really seeing light. You're actually seeing light being reflected by dust particles, right? Same thing, by the way, a soul. A soul in this world does not show up. How does a soul show up in this world? Only by way of the body, the vehicle by which the soul is then able to make choices within that vehicle and express itself by way of that body in this physical world, right? And so this is the idea. What essentially we're saying, by the way, we're beginning to understand why we should use a cup of water, not just spray some water out of a sink, right? Because let's understand what's the whole issue that happened here when we went to sleep is and the whole way Tuma energy is loss of potential, energy of loss of potential came down to us, is because there was a separation of soul from body to a certain extent, right? So what's going to be the tikkun for that, the rectification of that? Let me take water, which is all about consciousness, which is all about that concept of light, like we just explained. Let me take water and unify that with a vessel and take that energy of that light vessel energy, that water vessel energy, right? That unity, that integration of light and vessel, that integration of soul and body, so to speak, of consciousness and non-consciousness. Let me take that and pour that onto the hands, which is in a state of loss of potential because there was a separation of soul and body. And thereby rectifying that situation. Does that make sense? Or did I lose people in the madness? Someone tell me it makes sense. Someone tell me it makes no sense.
Makes sense.
You're with me? All right, cool. And so this is the concept of Netilat Yadayim. By the way, based on this, I also have a chiddush. I don't know if this is true, but you can tell me your thoughts. I don't know. But, you know, we say a very funny thing when we make the blessing. We say, Al Netilat Yadayim. And we usually say, oh, on the washing of the hands. But really, what does Netilat mean? Netilat does not mean washing. Netilah means, anybody know?
Taking.
Taking. Isn't that interesting? Taking. So now in Judaism, though, we have two words for taking. What's the other word for taking? If I were to ask your average Joe, your average Jew on the street, how do you say take in Hebrew? Probably they're going to answer me.
Lakachat.
Lakachat, right? Lakach, lokeach, lakachat. But apparently we have another word for taking also called netilah, or notel. Now, you guys all know, of course, and this is very important in Judaism in general, and Hasidic probably sources in particular, really any analytical approach to Judaism at all, and we're going to need things like this. Basically, that if there's two words, more than one word in Judaism for something, then really the problem is that you don't understand what it really means, because there's no way there's two words meaning the same exact thing. There must be some different nuance, something different between those two different words, right? And so, lokeach and notel, while they both mean take in English, it must be that there's two different things about, they must mean two different things. So I have a theory. I don't know if it's true. I should probably ask someone their thoughts on this, but I have a theory, and that is like this. My theory is that imagine you were to walk in the street and you were to see something that is ownerless, just sitting there in the middle of the street. Imagine I go and take that ownerless thing. I take it. I see a $100 bill sitting there in the middle of the street, assuming that the owner forgot about it or lost any hope of getting it, which is the assumption we make in Judaism when a person loses cash without any special marks on it. Imagine I go pick up that $100 bill. I take it outside of the public domain, and outside it was previously in the status of ownerless. I take it now into my possession. I believe that is the concept of lokeach. I take that object, and it takes on the status of my money. It takes on the status of me. Right now, it's called, before it was ownerless money, now it's Eli's money. Okay? I believe that is lokeach. But what if you take something, for example, you take this water and you put it on your hands, and now instead of it taking on your status, you take on its status? Maybe that's what notel means. Maybe lokeach means it takes on, maybe lokeach means the object takes on my status, and notel means that I go ahead and take this thing and then I take on its status. Don't know. You can tell me I'm crazy. It's fine.
Like taking ownership. Like not taking ownership of something physical, but you're taking ownership of taking responsibility type of thing.
No. Just the other thing. The lokeach is that thing takes on my status. I went and bought this basketball. Now it takes on the status of being my ball. It came into my domain. Whereas here I'm taking the water, but I'm going into its domain. It was in a domain of union of water and vessel. I was in a status of disconnect from water of vessel, disconnect soul from body. I had that energy on me. But now I put on this water. I take the water onto me, but really I am taken by the water to the status of what the water was. You have that idea?
Yeah, so like you're becoming the light and you're becoming.
I'm becoming well, really I'm going for a union of light and vessel, right? Because this whole issue happened, this energy of loss of potential happens when there is a disconnect of soul and vessel, right? Soul and body, or light and vessel. There's like a disconnect. Really, I mean, a person slept. So again, what is the sleeping? Sleeping is a mini death experience. What's death? It's separation of soul from body. So what we're looking for, so we wake up in the morning and we have that energy of separation of soul from body on us, that energy of loss of potential on us. And so what's the idea? What we want to do is to bring on, instead of it, we have an energy of disconnect, we want to bring an energy of integration. So we put the water in the vessel, and based on whatever God decides, there's something, this is called, in the end of the day, this is called segula. Why segula? Because this is beyond really physical understanding, right? But we're bringing together water and vessel, so now we have an energy of water vessel unity, a light vessel unity, right? Soul body unity, right? We're taking that energy and we're pouring it onto our hands that we're holding in, that we're previously holding in soul body disconnect, right? And so I think this is the concept a little bit of what washing of the hands is really all about, right? Now, Maharal Prague also explained, we're going to talk about this? Let me see. I don't think I bring this one. But the Maharal also explains that, if I'm not mistaken, that, there's different, we don't need to go into the 2, the 3, whatever, actually gives a whole spiel about that, but it's not really important for now. But I think this is more or less, in a nutshell, I think this is what we could say that the Netilat Yadayim, what's really going on there on a deeper level, right? Here, and let's see also, just if you want to take a look at a couple of sources I brought over here, just a quick one-liner about the light and the vessel concept. Here, we can take a look quickly over here at the Leshem, Akdamos Hashem 742, where he says, "V'nimshach v'nerag ha'or makli biyachad, v'nizgala oro al yedei akli, al derech ha'neshama shenizgala al yedei aguf." Right? So what does it mean to say? It means to say that what we were saying, that all expression here in this world happens by way of a unity of light with vessel. The same way that the soul is revealed by way of a body in this world. So really, that's just a reflection of how everything in this world works. And so if we are in a state of disconnect of soul and body, disconnect of our personal light and vessel, so what we want to do is take the water, which is the same concept of light. We want to take the water vessel combo, take that energy of water vessel integration and put that on our hands, which is that space of energy of loss of potential, because there was soul body disconnect when we were asleep, right? And when we do that, so that is our spiritual coffee to get us back in a state of like, okay, I'm ready to build up potential. I'm in a state of potential to grow to holiness, etc., etc. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
You just did, but you can ask another one.
Okay, can I ask 2 questions? My 3 questions.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Go for it.
So is this implying that the water vessel, I guess, dynamic is symbolic of ultimate potential, meaning like our work is to be the ultimate vessel, or our work is to like manifest the ultimate, like the vessel? Like, is it like you work toward being the right vessel, or is it like you draw out the right vessel? You know what I mean?
I do not.
Like, do you? Okay. I'll start with part A, which is, this implies that the ultimate potential is water vessel, I guess, cohesion, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. We're there. Okay, so now we have light. We have like the neshama, right? Like you have like God connection, right? Okay, fine. So the vessel is the consciousness. The vessel is your body. The vessel is like whatever's containing that connection.
Okay, I mean, typically usually consciousness is usually looked at as a light. I mean, you have consciousness versus you have the body, which is not conscious, for example, right? You have a soul versus body, consciousness versus body, light versus light, and also darkness. You know, like, so the point is always to integrate those two, right? We want to integrate soul and body. In Judaism, we're big on integration. Right? We're big on integration. So a lot of people and a lot of religious beliefs or even non-religious beliefs are like, okay, the way to go is to like shun the physical and go towards the spiritual. In Judaism, we do say that there is something to be gained from that in the short term. In the short term, that might be something you want to do. You want to go live in a hilltop or a mountain or in a cave somewhere for a certain amount of time to realign yourself, to go on a little bit of a spiritual retreat. That's one thing, but that's not life. In Judaism, we are about integration. Holiness is 2 stages. Stage 1 is to extract myself from things that, like, yes, maybe extract myself from the physical so that I'm not engrossed by the physical. But then when I'm conscious and clear, okay, so now let me re-engage and be involved in the physical from a place that's spiritual. Right? Like we said last week, that's all of Avodat Hashem. All of Avodat Hashem is to pull off a little bit of divine living here in a world that seems to be non-divine. Then we're really doing something, right? If Hashem wanted us to be up with the angels, he wouldn't have sent us down here, right? But our true preciousness only comes out when we can pull off a little bit of spiritual living, a little bit of angelic kind of living. But here, when we're in a physical world, here when we're in a physical body, right? So that's all about integration, right? So we have to first and foremost make sure we're not losing ourselves in the body, losing ourselves in the physical, being totally engrossed in the physical. That is stage 1. And that's what Rashi says when he talks about how Kedusha, when Kedoshim Tiyu, when he says that we need to be parush, we need to be, separate ourselves from the physical. But it doesn't mean separate ourselves from the physical and never be involved in the physical. It means to be in the physical, but not engrossed by the physical. Be in physical, but be beyond the physical, right? So that's called integration, right? That we're going to be spiritual, but involved in the physical. Be a spiritual being having a physical experience. Don't be a physical being who once in a while has a burst of inspiration, has a spiritual experience. Understand?
Okay, fine. Okay, so today I had to, so sorry, I interrupted you. I got it. But I'm missing something, which is like today I had to go to the post office and then I had to go get like my ID card and then I had to go to the bank and I had to in that moment, I'm not thinking like, how am I going to be like a spiritual being right now? Like how, I guess I could, right? Like I could be in my feminine, I could be like kind, or I could do mitzvahs, but like dafka, is that too much to expect? Or like sometimes you just have to go do the things, like you just have to go deal with bank people and like post office things.
You have to do post office things, but also remember that there's a God when you're doing the post office things. Talk to Hashem, make use of your time, listen to something. But again, a person I know who I'm talking to here, a person can also go ahead and take this to the other extreme, which is like, you got to remember also.
I'm not there to like be like so holy when I'm doing post-op. I'm just not there.
Okay, but the point is when you're interacting with people, to remember that there is a God and that this person isn't able to do anything negative to you that, as if like it's working against God's plan. You know what I mean? Like to be God conscious in those situations, in that physical situation.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. That's better. Okay.
That means to say that you're interacting with this person, but you're also conscious that really like that Hashem is here. Like you're like not 100%. You're in that situation, but you're not 100% engrossed in that situation with that person, right? See what I'm saying? No, maybe, yes. It's frozen. No, not frozen.
No, yeah.
You're with me?
That was
cool.
very helpful.
God bless you. What else we got? Other thoughts, questions, ideas? Slow down, everyone, not all at once. So, Tov, we could look at another source here or two, another source or two here. Here, okay, very good. Let's go down to the bottom right. To the bottom right, Rabbi Nassan of Breslov, the Kutei Halachos again, Netzilas Yadayim Shel Shachris 3:4. Right, so he says essentially what we're saying here, right? Se'u Yadechem Kodeshu Baruch Hu Hashem. It says in the pasuk. So let's read what he says. Se'u Yadechem. He says that part of the saying Netzilas Yadayim is also there's an idea when you after you wash the hands, you pick up your hands and make the bracha. Right, because the idea is this concept of elevation. Because you're bringing, the idea is what? The idea is you're bringing my hands, which are the concept of physical, my hands, which are most susceptible to getting pulled away from their purpose, the hands which are susceptible, which again, first and foremost, the Tumah energy enters the hands because the hands are involved in the world of action. So what do? I wash the hands and I'm elevating them. I'm lifting them up to the level of the head. I'm lifting them up to that place of consciousness, that's place of da'at. And thereby also, I'm raising the concept of light, of darkness, of non-consciousness, to the concept of yom, to the concept of day, to the concept of light, to the concept of consciousness, right? That's the idea. Bringing up shalok keseder to the concept of cheseder. And this is specifically done by the hands. Why? Because the hands are the tools of action in this world. Like, and so the idea is, okay, so we're bringing that side of us that could be non-conscious, that could be empty of godliness if we just let ourselves go completely. So we're elevating that to be in a place of consciousness. That's what it's about. Okay, so there you go.
Can I ask a quick question?
You just did. You may ask another one. Go ahead.
Can I ask two questions? All right. About something you said before about living with Hashem. My question is the following. Does that include living with Hashem, being conscious and trying to be present as possible? Would that necessarily mean actually being conscious of a higher being the entire time? Or is it just not being conscious and trying to be aware of our, actions and emotions and of ourselves?
I didn't understand the difference between your two options.
Meaning the second option is actually not just being aware of yourself, but also like reminding yourself constantly that there's someone above you rather than just you work, even though it is kind of the same thing deep down, but like on a more shallow level. I think like, just reminding myself that it's not me against myself or me and like a higher power the whole time, if that makes sense.
It's all good. I think you could say both. There were certain in the Hasidic world, I don't know if they still do this now, but back in the day, the Rebbes would tell the students that every hour, in the middle of your Torah study, in the middle of learning Gemara, whatever it is, after every hour, some people would probably say even more frequently than that, maybe even after every few minutes or every 15 minutes, whatever it was, let's just say after every hour, take a step back from the Gemara and be like, there is a God. And then go back into the study, What does it mean to say? It means to say to be God consciousness, even when we're learning Torah, forget about, going to the post office, which is of course, right? We need to be involved in that for sure too, right? Obviously. But even when a person's already involved in Torah, right? You could get involved in the Gemara or whatever, and let's be honest, not be conscious of God. On the other hand, though, if a person's always just like God, so then you're not going to do anything. And this world is about doing. And you're also not going to learn any Gemara because you're thinking God. And you need to be involved in learning what you need to do. I can't just be, so it's about this concept of integration, right? I really think that a lot of times, so often we see that this is what I like to call the schizophrenia, the spiritual schizophrenia of the Jew. We always have to be in two places at once. Can't just be, I always have to be bouncing here, bouncing on both, you know what I mean? On the one hand, God, on the other hand, I need to be in action. If I'm only in action and I forget about God, if I'm only in God, then it's just like, okay, God didn't create me to be an angel standing in heaven, not doing anything. So it's the dual nature of the Jew, the dual nature of ourselves, that we have spiritual and a physical side of ourselves, or at least in this role in this physical world, that's how we are. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And so, so I don't know. I think that's the idea.
No, I like the answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you for being here. Awesome to have you here.
Let's say we want to, I don't know, go to the next step of, after realizing there's a God, actually like thanking him, different moments of the day. Or at least I know for me, I like in the morning, I always say, I always pray and I thank him, but then I kind of forget in the middle of the day of just being like, you know what? Thank you that you gave me the power to make it through this day. Or so
Yeah,
far.
so look, I mean, there are different, if you want to be more conscious, there are different strategies to do that. Nowadays, we're blessed with electronics, and you can even set more than one alarm on your phone to remember, to take a minute, let a little beep go on and stop what you can stop what you're doing. And you can have a moment of meditation or conversation with God or whatever it is, and be conscious in that way. Just there's so simple things like this, keep us more conscious, keep us more aware, keep us get us out of the mundaneness. And if you take a step further, you can also be like, okay, hold on a second, how am I acting in this situation? Or I'm about to step into a situation. What does God really want from me in this situation? How does God really want me to act in this situation? Who does he want me to be in this situation?
I think many people also, this generation, including myself, seem to only think and speak to God when we're davening. The rest of the time we're like, okay, wait, I'm not actually with God right now, so let me just I can do whatever I want. But when
Listen, I'll be honest with you.
short
You think it's like, oh, everyone likes to trash our generation, What do you think it was? That's like, how do you think it was back in the day? I mean, yeah, okay, shepherds maybe were naturally more inclined to be in conversation with God, but people in the city for sure. No, yeah, people always had this stuff. You know what I mean? We always listen. We have to be train ourselves to be more conscious. It's nothing. I don't know. We don't have to. We don't. I don't know if it's our generation. I don't know.
No, I'm
Everybody.
saying that's all I
It's
know is
nature.
our
It's human
generation.
nature. It's human nature. Especially one of the great tests of wealth. That's what all the rabbis say. One of the greatest tests we have is wealth. Who's more likely to turn to God? The one who has a full refrigerator, or the one who doesn't know where the next meal is coming from? So there's when we're comfortable, when we're comfortable, we have to work harder to be conscious. But okay, I'd rather be comfortable and work hard to be conscious than to be uncomfortable. And that's what we pray for. We pray for parnasa, right? Pray for parnasa, right? What do we say in all the prayers for parnasa and all the prayers for sustenance? It says we ask God to give us all sorts of everything we need and everything our families needs, and et cetera, et cetera. In order that we should be free, have time, be freed up from all these other things that are pulling at us in life, in order to be more invested in God-oriented activities. So that's the ideal. That's what we're going for. All the prophets were rich. People like to think the prophets were dressed in rags and had no money and whatever. And no, prophets were all rich.
We have a
prophets
we
were all
have a
rich.
controversy. Eliyahu Nabi. What about him?
What about him? He's also rich.
Oh my God. He was living in a cave. When he was rich, when is this metuar that he was rich?
All right, I'll get back to you on it since I got the challenge for the official
Sorry.
challenge.
Sorry.
I will get back to you on the exact verse. I will quote you chapter and verse. I'll quote you the Talmud or whatever. I'll find it for you. All of the prophets.
Can you let us all
Sure,
know?
listen, I'll definitely will find you the sources which say that all the prophets were rich. That's not hard to find. They're all rich in order that they shouldn't need to rely on anybody else. But I will find that. Now I will post that in the WhatsApp group now just to vindicate myself here. But they were rich. I mean, look, you find certain other stories of people in the Talmud as well who had it all, and even Rabbi Yehuda Nasi had it all, and it's he's the one who said lay on the floor and eat bread and salt and that whole thing in the Pirkei Avos. That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who was extremely wealthy. So there is something to that. There's something to being able to have all of this stuff, but then also okay, what do I need? And by the way, we should be clear what we need, right? Because you have those of us who are perfectionists or have all sorts of other mental health issues. We'll take this in the wrong way, right? We'll take okay, what I need to mean okay, bread and literally bread and water and whatever. Okay, but then when we're like that, let's say if I start living like that, if we start eating like that, how are we going to treat people, right? You'd be more snappy at people. If you are, then what you need is a little more than bread and water. Then your bread and water is going to include some tuna fish, you know what I mean? Or something, protein, I don't know, whatever you need. But that's the point. The point is we have to find what we really need, right? and that might include a comfort from time to time. You know what? That might include a comfort. That might include a dip in the Dead Sea every half a year. That might include, whatever it is. We have to figure what that out. What that is. We have to be real with ourselves. What is going to put us at our peak performance? Not what's going to make us a glutton either, but what is going to put us in a place of peak performance, right? And that means a certain amount of self-care. That means a certain amount of, being real with ourselves and being real with people and being able to say no and being able to, and extending of ourselves, yes, but not being a victim, whatever. This is, whatever. We have a lot of, but we have a long time together. We'll talk about all these things. Anyway, yeah, go ahead. Ruchama is the only one. Usually, by the way, you should know, if you raise your hand, I'm usually not going to be able to see you, but it happens to be I saw you, Ruchama. What's up?
I just wanted to make a comment on when you said that we lift our hands up when we say the blessing after washing our hands. I was taught not to lift up our hands for the whole blessing, but especially when we say Al Netilat Yadayim, to lift it up to be parallel to our heads, so that our actions, which is our hands, which is our actions in this world, should be parallel to our Hashem wants, to the benefiting our neshama, which is in our head, or using our sechel and all of that. So I just thought to share that, because whenever I say the blessing and I lift my hands up, I always think my actions should be,
That's right. That's right. I heard once also an idea to lift the hands above the heads, higher up than the head, in order to show that like this whole idea of this whole process of spiritual tahara and all of this kind of stuff is like, don't think you understand anything about it. It's really all beyond our rational thought. But sadly, that's another explanation. I don't remember where I heard that one, but I like yours better. Honestly, I like what we're saying here better. I like yours better. But sadly, other thoughts, questions, ideas. All right, let's take a look at the last source here. The Maharal of Prague, Netiv Avodah 16. He says like this. Actually, you know what? No. Okay, let's take a look. Ready? Here goes. Hamayim yesh b'hem tara kasher mekli u'v'mikva v'kasher hem al hayad yesh b'hem tuma ki hayad makom muchan letuma. Okay, we said that. V'sharei hayad tzarich tara lefichach ha'ocha b'lo niguk yadayim kilu achalem chem tuma. Tamei. Okay, so firstly, he's also saying that Bezrat Hashem, maybe we'll talk about this when we get to the morning, to the blessing of washing hands over eating, to talk more about this. But he says over here, if you look at the second paragraph, so he says here, you got to be worried about the second. You wash once. That's good. You're washing the tumah off the hands, but there's still some tumah left in that water, so you need to wash it and get ready. You need to wash it a second time. And so there's an idea that those first two times are for the times of getting rid of tumah, and then the third time is for the time of activating, putting on again an extra one for tahara. It would seem that Ashkenazim for eating bread or whatever, we don't seem to worry about this last part of adding on tumah. We can just do it two times. Adding on tahara, we just do it two times. But seder, okay, whatever. That's already getting more into nuances that I'm not ready to go into. But anyway, fine. Questions, thoughts, ideas on anything we said here, my friends? All right, guys.
Why
questions on anything else? Wait, what was that?
Why 6 times?
Again, it has to do with 3 and 3. It seems like it has to do that the first set is to wash away the tumah. The second set is due to the fact that that there's still some, even when you wash even though you washed away the tumah, there's still remnants of the tumah in the water that's on your hands, and so you wash away the second time in order to really get rid of the tumah, and then the third one is to add on tahara. Add on another level of tahara, of what's called tahara, or maybe even kedusha. I don't think so though. I don't remember. It doesn't say it here, and I don't remember where I saw more on it. So something along those lines. What?
Someone's asking, why do Sephardim do 8 times? I've never heard, I'm Sephardi, we do 6 times. I've never heard of washing your hands 8 times.
I have not heard about doing washing 8 times, although I'll tell you, I did hear. I believe it's the
I
Vilna
think
Gaon.
Ashkenazim in the Mishnah Berurah, they do 8 times in the morning. Some people hold
Okay,
by.
so I thought it's the Vilna Gaon, but that there's an idea that if you don't have something to dry your hands with after the 3 and 3, so then wash again because you don't have anything to dry with. I think the Vilna Gaon says that. Maybe it's the Mishnah Berurah. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe both of them say it. But anyway, so maybe that's an answer about why there would be a 4th. But the 4th is like essentially if you don't have a way to dry. What else we got here?
I just want to share something. I'm not sure it's written down, but I heard a concept about. Question was, why do we use water? It could be you've already mentioned this, but I think I have heard like why do we go to the mikveh? Why do we dip our bodies into water? And the answer I heard was that water was one of the first creations. It was here before the world was here, so it's kind of like dipping into the place which what was it again, to kind of bring us back to
Going back to the
ourselves before
source.
we
Right.
sin. Back to the source, right? That's yes.
Right. Okay. Very good. Yeah. There's. I would share. Yeah. There's definitely, for sure, 1,000%. I would talk more about that when we get Bezrat Hashem. If we do a class on mikvah, Bezrat Hashem will talk more about that. There's a lot to say on mikvah. There's a bunch of great sources on that. Bnei Yisachar has some awesome stuff and whatever. Well, there's a lot more to say. There's a lot more to say about that for sure. Yashar koach. What else we got here, my friends? Questions on this or on anything else?
Wait, okay. So when you wash your hands twice, you get rid of the tuma, and then the 3rd time, it's tara.
It seems
So
to be
then-
an added level, right? It seems to be tara, but which means,
So
but
then-
then also really, you can make the case that getting rid of the tuma after the first 2, and then by default there's tara there because there's no tuma. So
Then
I'm
why
not quite
would
sure
you-
what to do with that. Yeah.
Then why would you dry your hands after the tara? Wouldn't you want to keep it? I would say.
I hear. It's funny that you say that. There's a thing about that with mikveh, actually, as you might know.
Isn't
But,
it also with, before benching, what's it called?
Mayim achronim.
Mayim achronim, you're not supposed to dry your hands, right?
Oh no, you could. No, you should. You could maybe even should. Yeah. No, you could dry your hands there, as far as I know. Yeah, I don't know. The drying of the hands, I think, is that the idea is that the truth is ultimately that there might still be this tuma energy ultimately in this water, as much as we're trying to get rid of it, because you have to understand that water is a tuma conductor. Water is a tuma conductor. Okay, so for example, in electricity, some things are conductors of electricity, some things are not a conductor of electricity, right? You put your hand on a metal pole, and then a lightning bolt hits it, you're going to get a shock. By the way, water also is a conductor of electricity. If you're in the ocean and starts a rainstorm, everyone says, get out of the water, right? Why? Because a lightning bolt can hit it, and then you can get shocked in the water. Wood, for example, is not an electricity conductor, okay? Similarly, just like you have this in the physical, like everything, physical is a parallel of the spiritual. The word Kabbalah in Hebrew is related to the Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel, because one of the main Kabbalistic teachings is that everything in the physical here is a parallel of a deeper spiritual reality. And so, similarly, Tuma has certain things there, certain things that are Tuma conductors, and certain things that are not Tuma conductors. Water is a Tuma conductor. However, of course, what we're looking to do is put an overwhelming amount of water, and then we're not really concerned about it. So it's kind of like the wind, wind on the one hand can imagine there's fire, right? Wind can be a horrible thing for a fire. If it's pushes the fire, it could spread the fire. On the other hand, though, if a strong enough wind is going to put out that fire, right? The same thing over here with the water, right? The water on the one hand, and this is what the Maharal was saying, the first part, that first section, the last source there, which I kind of skipped over, right? Water essentially is a tuma conductor, but if we put an overwhelming amount of water, we understand that water also on its own is a purity, is is going back to the source, etc. Everything you're saying is a concept of consciousness, everything we said. So on the one hand, from a tumah aspect, there's an idea that it's a tumah conductor. On the other hand, though, if we overwhelm it with water, so it's what's it called? It's an agent that gets rid of tumah energy. So we want to dry. We definitely want to dry the hands when we can, for sure, and ideally not on your clothes. Actually, that's not considered to be a good thing. You're not supposed to do that on your clothes. Questions, thoughts, ideas? Keep going, guys. All right. Cool.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Two. I want to ask two questions.
With you, really. Whoops.
Hello?
Sorry, I got cut out there. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here. It's really great to have you all here. It's really great to be doing this, and I hope we continue. Hopefully, we'll see those who can make it in person next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to be on.
Robert,
so-
someone just had a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, it's quite deep, but you said it goes into a lot of terminology. You said that water is about prinat dat, right?
Okay.
The thing is, I heard a shiur that says that mayim, it's like ma. It's a lot of ma. Okay, ma in plurals.
Yeah.
Okay, and ma it's prinat chokhmah. So it's kind of interesting. If mayim and someone said that it's the first thing to be created, so it also like connects to the chokhmah. And more than that. So how does it mityeshev?
I think it fits in. I think it fits in very well. It's firstly, chachma is the concept in Kabbalah. Chachma is the concept of the original. It's the original seed of something, right? Chachma in Kabbalah, just like you see, the word chachma is koach ma. It means a potential. We're starting something. It's a seed. It's an idea. That's the concept of chachma, right? So it's the concept of starting something. It's two different bechinot that are connected. It's not like one or the other. It's not like some kind of machloket or something. It's two different bechinot. The da'at essentially is the actualization of chachma. If you think about it, chachma is the concept of initial idea. Bina is the concept of the development of that idea. And da'at. So let's do it like this. Imagine a person has an idea that they want to build a house. That's a chachma. It's like if you ever see a cartoon. And the character in the cartoon has an idea. A light bulb goes off over their head. They have an idea, right? Do you ever see such a thing? Like a cartoon like that? Whatever, it's a thing in American culture. I don't know. But a light bulb goes off, or the person has an initial idea, okay? That's chachma. But then, so imagine a person has an idea, I'm going to build a house, okay? Bina is from the word boneh, which means to build. It builds the idea of chachma. A person has a grand idea, I'm gonna build a house. Then Bina is, okay, hold on a second. How many floors are there gonna be? Where are we gonna put the bathrooms? How's the wiring gonna be set up? How many rooms are there gonna be? Right? So Chachma is one holistic initial idea in an instant. Bina is compartmentalizing in order to actually, hopefully, build the building. Da'at is attaching those things together and coming up, for example, the blueprint. Da'at is the concept of chachma on the one hand, the bina on the other, right? Which one, right? Because if I were to ask you, what's more important, the holistic vision and inspiration, or the practical, actual how-to of building that building? The true answer, of course, is what do you mean? They're both important. Without either of them, you don't have a building. So that's da'at. Da'at is the ability to kind of oscillate and to combine the inspiration and vision of chachma with the practical how-to of bina, right? So, but then essentially what that means is that essentially da'at is the fulfillment of chachma. Chachma is the idea, and da'at is when you get to a holistic idea, which also includes the different practical how-to. So I'm not sure that I don't think there's a. Anyway, it's getting too into the nitty-gritties over here, but anyway. So I hope that's helpful. Rivka has no problem. Thank you for being here. Rivka, what do you say? I thought she raised her hand. Okay, fine. So my friends, have yourselves, maybe she was saying bye. All right, my friends, have yourselves a wonderful a wonderful
No,
day,
I
wonderful
just
week.
have a
Feel free to
question,
post.
but it's just like it's
Okay.
maybe can I ask you later? Is that okay? You mind?
Okay, of course, fine. Be in touch. All right, so friends, post. Feel free to post to the WhatsApp group if you enjoyed. Make people who are there who did not show up. Make people feel bad about themselves that they didn't show up. Have them a little bit of FOMO, so that maybe they'll jump in next time. You know. Anyways,
We're just saying, Rabbi,
yeah.
we're looking forward to you posting the source about Eliyahu Navi. And I'm saying if you don't find the source, we might actually leave the group. So just a heads up.
Let's see what happens.
But with no pressure.
Let's see what happens, my friends. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're on. A challenge accepted, baby. Challenge accepted. All right, so I'll see you guys in the WhatsApp group.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Rabbi.
being here.
Wash them with
Thank
your daughter.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.